Hi, and welcome to my podcast, YouTube video, or wherever you're watching. Today, I have a wonderful guest. He's Dillon. He has an incredible health story to tell us. At the age of 28 years old, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, but he didn't give up and just rest on what regular medicine was telling him. He became a health coach specialized in autoimmune disease. And I love his line that goes like this: Autoimmune is the name, education is the game. And I personally love it because education also was what helped me overcome the diet mentality, chronic stress levels, insulin resistance, hormonal imbalances, and even binge drinking. And if you have been following my podcast, YouTube channel, or any social media that I may have, you already know that a chaotic lifestyle led me to a brain stroke in 2020. So the conversation we're having today is of great value for you, and we hope we can serve you of inspiration to start your journey to a better and healthier lifestyle. So, Dillon, welcome. And I'm going to make a few questions, and we're going to have a very relaxed and very entertaining conversation today for us and for whoever is going to be listening. So, number one, I want you to tell me, what was your occupation before you decided to become a health coach?
Well, first and foremost, Andy, thank you for having me on your podcast, YouTube, wherever this is going to end up. I appreciate you having me on. And then hopping into that question, what I did before this is I actually worked in the world of sleep studies. I worked in the world of polysomnography. And so that's just a big fancy word for saying that we hooked up patients with a lot of wires on the head, on the body. We monitored for any sort of parasomnias. We monitored for sleep apnea, any sort of sleep disorder breathing or behavior disorder, anything like that. And so that's what I did for the last about decade or so, is just worked in the world of sleep medicine. That's what started me down the road of working in healthcare.
Perfect. Interesting too. And now, I would like to tell me about your life when you were diagnosed of diabetes type 1. You know that I am not a health coach. I'm a health coach. Sorry, I am not a doctor. Is what I meant to say. And I have never worked in medicine. Actually, my previous profession is that I don't work on that anymore, but it was a lawyer, intellectual property attorney. It has nothing to do with medicine. So for me, when I knew about your story, you said diabetes type 1. For a normal person like me, we like having just regular knowledge of medicine. That is something that we have heard that is like more genetic, because all the doctors say like you get diabetes type 2, right? And that's something that is a condition that can develop along your life. But diabetes type 1 is not supposed to happen when you are like a grown up, for example, or you don't have any. How this happened, and where were you, and where did it take you after that? How did that event impact your life?
So I guess kind of buckle up. It's a little bit of a long story, but there was a Sunday that I woke up whenever I was 28 years old, like you were saying, and I woke up. It was a beautiful day. Sun was coming through the window, like it always does whenever it wakes me up. And I go and sit up on the bed. I feel kind of funny, a little bit queasy. And I'm like, this doesn't feel right. I'm going to go to the restroom. I stand up, and whenever I stand up, I lose my balance completely, and I fall forward into the wall. And I just hit it, and I can't get my balance, and I just go all the way to the floor. So then, like I said, I'm thinking to myself, well, that doesn't normally happen. Let's try this again. So then I go and I climb myself back up on the bed, and I go to stand up again, and the same thing happens. I hit the wall, I ride it to the floor. And so then I'm thinking to myself, well, something's going on now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call out for help. I'm going to ask somebody to come in and help me. So whenever I did, my brain told me that I had said words, but apparently what came out of my mouth was inaudible noises. And so there was just, I had said help, but what came out of my mouth was just a noise of some sort. And so me being young and foolish at the time, I was like, I'm just going to ride this thing out and see how it goes. I'll wait till maybe the next day. If I'm still feeling bad, I'll go to the doctor. So I ride out the rest of that Sunday, still nothing changes, still feeling terrible. And then I wake up the next day, I call the doctor's office, my PCP and my primary care, and I go and have a meeting with him. And he looks at me, and I presented healthy because at the time I was doing MMA, I was doing jujitsu, I was going to the gym constantly. I was in that kind of flow state in my head that I needed to be doing, things of that sort. And so I presented healthy. And so he gave me, hardly any time of day, told me that it was the crystals in my ears is the reason that I had lost my equilibrium and that I couldn't speak very well. And so I needed to go to a physical therapist and have the Epley maneuver done. And so I, take what he says as gospel because I believed that, the doctors had all the answers. And so I go to the physical therapist. They do the Epley maneuver on my head. They position my head a certain way. And so what the Epley maneuver is it's a way to get the tubes in your ears that have liquid in them. If there's crystals built up, it can mess with your balance. And so that maneuver is to get those crystals to move and to get out of the way so that equilibrium can come back. So I do that 4 different times throughout about a month and a half. I go see 2 specialists and I see my PCP 3 times. And so, 4 times, and nothing changes. And so finally, one day I get a recommendation from a friend of mine that maybe I should check my blood sugar levels, get a glucometer. So I have one of my friends, because at the time I wasn't driving anymore. I couldn't drive. My equilibrium was shot. I couldn't really, still not talking very well. And so I'm like, sure, let's pull a Hail Mary and we'll try this thing. And so I had a friend of mine bring me the glucometer. So I'm sitting there on the couch and I check my blood sugar and it's at 996. And I had just eaten some nothing bundt cake, one of the cakes here. And I was like, I got sugar on my fingers. That has to be, I'm going to go to the kitchen, wash my hand and try it again. So I go to the kitchen and I wash my hands and I sit back down, try it again. It's at 1001. And so I'm like, okay, that's not normal. We're going to have to do something about this. So then I go to the ER, and after a few hours of being poked and prodded and sitting there, on the gurney, this doctor comes in. She's got this very somber look on her face. You can tell that she's kind of upset. And she looks at me and she says, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you're a type 1 diabetic. And at the time, I didn't know much on diabetes at all. I knew it was blood sugar, dysregulation, but I had no clue anything deeper than that. What caused it, what it actually was, what the difference between type 2 and type 1 was. But I smiled at her and she looked at me like I was crazy, because I had finally had somebody, after a month and a half of struggling through this, give me an answer. So then once they gave me that diagnosis, they started looking back and saying, well, what happened? This guy was healthy. Why is he not healthy? Why did he have all of these issues going on? So then I go and have a CT scan on my brain, and it turns out that I had a stroke. They found scarring on my left temporal lobe. And so that's what was in charge of my balance and my ability to be able to formulate words coming out of my mouth. I can understand people talking to me, and I could make the thought in my brain, but I couldn't translate it to my mouth. And so that was the issue, but nobody caught that. I saw the specialist, I saw my PCP, I went to the physical therapist, and nobody caught what was going on. And so that was the very disheartening. That was the first little glimpse I got to see behind that conventional medical system's flaws. Is, it's quick in, quick out. And I presented healthy, and that was what was going on with me. And so that's where I started making that pivot to, well, maybe I should educate myself a little bit more on all of this. And then, of course, whenever you get diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic, it just it's baked into the cake, for lack of a better pun there. But it's baked into the cake because you have to learn to change your lifestyle. And so with type 2, it's your insulin resistant state. With type 1, it's where your pancreas no longer creates insulin. You lose the ability to have that hormone. So then you have to be your pancreas, or, the alternative is we get to pass away at 20 years prior to everybody else in the world. So you really have to start educating yourself. And that's what drove me forward to start down this path that I'm on now, is just seeing behind the curtain and experiencing that within myself, having the stroke and then also having the type 1 diabetes. And for a month and a half, nobody drew my labs. Nobody looked into my blood work. No one thought, well, maybe there is something wrong with him. I presented healthy. They didn't want to waste their time. They wanted it to be quick in, quick out, get their money and then be gone. Or, maybe it's not as nefarious as they needed to get money, but the system that they're in, dictated via the insurance, was telling them that they can only have 7 minutes with me. And then it's got to be on to the next person, on to the next person. And so that's what made me look behind the curtain.
I was just thinking about your stroke and how dangerous strokes are. Like, you didn't know you had a stroke. And the same thing happened to me, actually. I didn't know I had a stroke. And if it weren't for my husband and my mom, I don't know, maybe I would be dead right now, because what happened to me was uh, pretty similar to you, but I wasn't falling on the floor, but I just started feeling numb all over the body, all over the body. And at that moment of my life, it's something that I always talk. It's about binge drinking and the emotional drinking. It's like it's pretty normal in moms, like okay, it's like the end of the day, and you just go grab a drink because that's what relaxes you. And at that moment, it was New Year's. Actually, it was January the 1st, 2020. 8 o'clock in the afternoon, I was bathing my middle kid. My husband was bathing the other one upstairs. And it was very weird because I bent over. I was just like, with the sponge rubbing him. And then I look up and I just saw the tub, like copy pasted. Have you seen a computer with a virus? It was like, it was everywhere. And I was like, this is not right. Exactly what happened to you when you said, like, this is not right. And you swear you were talking, but you were not. And then you were trying to walk, and it was weird. It's like, and you keep trying, because it's like, this is weird. Okay, erase. There's something wrong here. But we push to be better always, like the lack of mindfulness, as I say. But and I was just like, okay, something was not right. And I was seeing this. It was so odd. It's funny but odd. The top copy pasted in all over the wall, and everywhere I look, it was so weird. And then I started to feel a little bit numb in the face, and I just stopped and I said, this is not right. And I went to get water because I thought it was because New Year's Eve. Of course, I had champagne and wine and the dinner, and it wasn't one or two. It was like this five, and in a long period of time. But it was like, and it was hot here in January. It's summer for us, and I live in the main city of the country, and here we can reach 35 degrees Celsius, which is huge. It's extremely hot, and I just thought I'm dehydrated, so I'm just gonna go get water. And I had water. I had, I don't know, half a liter, because I was also scared. And then I thought, okay, I have to relax, because when I get scared, I pass out. It was like I faint. It's like my brain shut off. It's like, this lady is in danger. Pfft, turn it off. It's just like a machine. It's so weird. And I said, no, I have to relax, or I'm going to faint. And then I sat and I called my husband and said, this is weird, because now the numb is coming down in my arms, and then in my legs. And I just bite my lips and I don't feel anything. And I didn't want to go to the hospitals because I don't like them. And he just insisted, and they took me to the hospital. And I was there and I was not feeling numb anymore. I was like, okay, yes, I came here, but I feel better. These are the symptoms, and I'm fine, so I'm going. It's like, no, you can't go. The lady, the nurse insisted. Good for her. It's like, I owe her my life. And she said, no, you have to stay because the symptoms are not normal. So you have to stay. And then they called the neurologist, and she came. They put me in a scanner, and it was horrible because it's the first time I realized I was a pretty claustrophobic. And it was one of the most. Did you have that examination? It's awful. I couldn't move. And then I came out of the machine, and a few seconds later, they were like, you need to be hospitalized right now, because you have these two veins we have here. I don't remember the medical name. I think it's carotids. It could be the name.
The carotid arteries.
Carotid, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to have 5 layers each, and I had 4 layers broken here and 3 layers broken here. It's like this one, it was hanging from one layer. It was a piece of skin. She was like, you need to be hospitalized now. You cannot even move to go to the bathroom. So they just they connect some stuff on me. And then they didn't let me move for anything. Like, you cannot go to the bathroom. You have to be here in the bed. And I was there in the hospital for 7 days. And you know what? I didn't feel anything. It was so weird because I just felt numb, and that was it. But then I just fell into a huge depression because I couldn't move, but I was not feeling anything. And they were just telling me, you are in danger. You can die. You cannot move. But I was not feeling pain. It was very weird. And I think it was the worst depression I have had in my life because I was exactly like you. I was going to the gym. I was exercising a lot. I was 12 kilograms overweight. So I was on a mission to lose weight in a bad way. That's why I have specialized in diet mentality, because I was over exercising. And the doctor said that they don't know why this happened. But I found my answer. It was high levels of blood pressure because I was drinking too much. I mean, the end of the day was always 1 or 2 glasses of wine, and that got my blood pressure really high. And I was over exercising, so it was a lot of stress on my body. It was high cortisol levels, high adrenaline levels. I was insulin resistant, and I didn't know. And I was stressed because being a mom of three, my three kids were very little. The youngest was like a year old, and then the next one was the middle one was 2 years old, and the other one was 4. That's a lot of pressure. And so I got my answer. It was that, right? And well, what I wanted to say with all this rambling was that it's very dangerous that a lot of people, like someone can have a brain stroke and you don't know it, and people die and they don't know they have a brain stroke. And in some cases, like for example in my case, the brain stroke I think is preventable because the lifestyle that I was leading, it was chaotic. It was the recipe for disaster. And in other cases you just cannot know. Like in your case, for example, you were having a life, you were just exercising normally, but like, how can you tell, right? But for example, the way I was living is the recipe for brain stroke or having any episode in your life that can lead you to something that you cannot know that you're having. So lucky, I owe my mom and my husband that they said you have to go to the hospital, because I don't know if I would be here right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's neat whenever you have people in your life that you can thank for looking out for you and seeing the things that you don't want to see. You know, if I didn't have, that person in my life that said, hey, maybe you should get that glucose and check blood sugar levels, then who knows what would have happened.
Exactly.
But going on to what you're saying about the stroke, it's for the people that have never experienced anything like that. You don't necessarily feel a stroke, and there's not pain that comes with it. There's just this numbing feeling, because I felt the same way as you. Everything just felt numb. And so the best way that I could describe, that's the reason I couldn't drive a car, because I couldn't, whenever you sit in a car, you can kind of, as soon as you sit in the car, you can feel the car around you. You know its presence. You can feel whenever it's moving, the inertia of the car. You can feel the stopping whenever you put on the brakes. I lost that ability. I wasn't able to feel the inertia anymore. I couldn't feel myself moving forward, sitting down, standing up. I was just in space, and there was no pressure that I could feel, anything of that sort. But the best way I can describe is whenever I was walking forward, it felt like I was walking into the sky. So the only reason I knew I was walking forward is because I could see it through my eyes that I was walking towards that destination I wanted to go towards. But if I would have closed my eyes, I would lose my balance and fall over instantly, because I couldn't make that anchor point with my eyes anymore. And my brain didn't have that equilibrium ability. And it was just, but it's crazy. You bring up a good point. It was numbing. There was absolutely no feeling, but there wasn't pain that came with this. It was just numbness whenever I had that stroke, much like what you were saying about your stroke.
Exactly. And I think we have this idea that when we're sick, we need to be in pain. We need to suffer. Something must hurt, otherwise we're fine. But these symptoms, they're not normal. I mean, we have to pay attention to that. Okay, so next question. Let me see. In regards with diabetes type 1, aside from what medicine books say about the disease, what do you think are the root causes of it? I mean, considering that what you know now as a health coach, what do you think is your new perspective about the disease?
So in the world of, type 1 is an autoimmune presentation that starts in the beginning. And so your your immune cells begin to attack your beta cells. Your beta cells are the cells in the pancreas that create insulin, that hormone that regulates blood sugar, amongst other things. But one of the biggest roles is to regulate that blood sugar and allow it to go in the cell. And so in order for any autoimmune presentation, there normally has to be three things. You have to have a genetic predisposition. Doesn't mean that you're destined to have that autoimmune disease, but there has to be that genetic predisposition. You have to have, a lot of times, 90 to 95% of people with autoimmune diseases have leaky gut. And then you also have to have lifestyle factors. And so the environment that your body's in, whenever you have that genetic predisposition, there's a trigger for that. Have you ever heard of epigenetics?
Yes.
And so epigenetics, it's like the light switch that turns on the gene that is the light bulb. And so that lifestyle activates the switch, which activates the light bulb that is the gene. And then a lot of times you have to program the system. If we're looking at this as if it was a computer, you're running a program. The program is to attack a certain protein structure. And so that protein structure, a lot of times you'll have some sort of maybe cross-reactivity, or say that the protein structure passes over that gut-blood barrier, it gets into the system, and it's a bigger protein structure because you have leaky gut. Your tight gap junctions have, they're not so tight anymore. And so then that protein gets out, and the immune system will then latch onto that because that protein, that large protein structure, shouldn't be there. And then it understands that it is foreign, and it gets programmed to attack that. But a lot of times those protein structures look very similar to what we have in our body. For me, it was my beta cells in my pancreas. My immune system deemed that as attack worthy and went after those beta cells, ousted them, and that's why I'm no longer able to make insulin. So that would be that root causal, the answer to the question. Sorry, long story long now. The answer to the question that you're asking is, between those three genetic factors, I could most definitely look back at my lifestyle at that point in time and say, I wasn't eating a non-inflammatory diet. I was eating what, the standard American diet, the SAD diet. And we were a lot of, very sad. But eating a lot of those processed foods, those high sugary foods, high carb, a lot of chemicals, a lot of preservatives. We have the bread here on the shelf stays there for a good month before it gets pulled. In other countries, it's there for a day or two and then it gets pulled. And so we've just got so much preservatives here. And I was just incorporating that a lot into my lifestyle. And so I imagine that's what loaded the gun and pulled the trigger to activate my immune response that my body had. That, and then just burning the candle at both ends, like you were talking about with over-exercising. I was most definitely over-exercising at the time. I was doing something 7 days a week and multiple times during those days. So I was adding stress on top of inflammation, and that's more than likely where my type 1 diabetes started to become a thing, was just too much on the immune system. The immune system then attacked my beta cells, and then here I am not being able to regulate my blood glucose.
Right. What you said, I have two questions. I want to start with the first one about the food. Yes, in United States, I lived for a short time in Vermont, actually. So I know the kind of food they have there. When I came back, I came back here with 8 kilograms overweight because I couldn't stop eating those Rice Krispie treats. Oh my God, they're so good, but they're toxic. It's like having, I don't know, a huge pot of sugar. That's it. That's the food. That's what's on it. and I was working as a ski instructor, so I was cold and I was tired and I didn't know how to eat actually. And I just grabbed a Rice Krispie treat because they were there for free for the kids. And now that I think, and I remember the food they served at the ski school for the kids, it's like, oh my God, I don't feed my kids that now. My kids don't eat, not even close to that. So, but what were you saying about the food? Yes, there's a lot of, as I live there, I know the amount of products that United States have. But you know what is sad? That the SAD diet, it has come here. And I cannot speak for all the other countries of South America, but here in my country, in Chile, we have a lot of things that are coming from the United States. And people, the marketing is fantastic. And as I work with mindful eating, what I try to teach my clients to is to pay attention to the eyes hunger. The ice hunger is what we have 9 types of hungers in mindful eating, and one of the one type of hunger is the ice hunger. It means that all of our senses are hungry and they need to be satisfied, but our senses doesn't need food. I mean, they don't need food all the time. Yes, when you eat your food, you need to chew a lot. You need to release the flavors because your taste buds are at the end of the tongue, and that's the center that is getting all the pleasure, right? But it's not your eyes, it's not your stomach, it's not your brain, it's not your ears, it's not your hands, right? So what marketing does, actually, it tells you, for example, there was some cookies here. They were American cookies. I don't remember the brand because it was when I was little, but I remember the slogan. It's like, I bet you cannot eat only one. And you couldn't. Now I know that it's for flavor enhancers, that it really gets you, and you can stop eating because of the sugar and the ingredients it has, and the flavor enhancers, the chemicals, and plus the amount of sugar that just raises your dopamine, and you're like, yes, I need another one. I need another one. And so it's getting here too, and it's being hard. People struggle, and it's very emotional to this thing about with the food, because there is a connection. I remember I made a reel where I said there is a relationship between the emotions and the food, and that relationship needs to get divorced because they don't belong together, right? Food has the aim of food is nutrition, is to nurture our body. It's our information for ourselves. We can enjoy the food, yes, but we cannot attach to the food. Like, the food cannot be our means to soothe our pain, our sadness, stress, to make us feel happier. And some, for example, I don't know, McDonald's promises you that you're going to be happy with a happy, what is the name in English of we call it?
Happy Meal.
The Happy Meal, yes. Now in Spanish, it's like the happy box, right? They use the word box. Cajita feliz is like the happy box here. The Happy Meal, yes. It's because it's supposed to make you happy, right? No, that is not going to give you happiness. So about that, yes, we are in this country. It's a very small country, smaller than the United States, but we are receiving everything from the United States. So, and I have seen the evolution here of the food the people here used to have, and it's becoming exactly as the American standard diet. The second thing was that you said you were over exercising. I want to know why.
So there's the whole body image thing, not being enough, having that sustainability in your own head of just saying, I am enough. You had to physically look a certain way. And so that was one reason that I did a lot of exercising, is because I wanted to physically look like I was healthy. I wanted to have that presentation. And then also for performance, I was at the time I was doing, like I was talking about with the MMA thing, and I thought I was going to go amateur and then go pro, all the dreams and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so I was trying to increase my performance. And I thought at the time that my performance would be better if I did more, instead of just maximizing a few strategic exercises and training sessions throughout the week. I thought if I did, multiple times, 2 a day, 7 days a week, I would be that much more ahead of the competition. I'd be that much better. Yeah. And that was another reason that I was trying to exercise so much, is I was trying to increase, my prowess on the mats. And it's not necessarily the way to go. If you can maximize, just a few times a week, it's going to be so much better. But that was mainly the two driving forces for me that made me want to go into exercising that much and over exercise. And it's just a matter of not knowing, what I know now as far as exercise. And, the cell degradation that happens whenever we exercise, the stress that goes on the body, like you were talking about the cortisol levels, you're going to have the adrenaline spike. And then for diabetics, what we don't realize is with an adrenaline spike, your liver's going to throw on a lot more glucose. So then it's going to drive up your blood sugar levels, which, if you've got things regulated well, it's not too big of a deal. But if things are dysregulated, you might go from 150 to 350, 400 on your blood sugar levels. So those are things that you have to monitor and watch out for, because, like in my case, blood sugar levels went high, I had a stroke. we don't want that to happen for anybody else, but no one's really told. I know I didn't get the education whenever I first got diagnosed that when you exercise, your blood sugar levels are going to go up, because you're told when you exercise, your blood sugar levels are going to go down, but they go up first. And if they go up and they can sustain high rather than going up and then coming back down. And then, of course, there's the whole interplay of insulin that goes into that as well, that if you put too much insulin, then you go exercise, then you bottom out, and now you're hypoglycemic and you're passing out in the middle of the gym, and now you're heading to the ER and getting to pay a good bill for the ambulance ride. So, but going back to the original question, that was my two reasons for doing that much exercise. Is, physically, I wanted to look, the way that I wanted to feel in my head, and it was all based off of, how I look physically. And then two, I just want to be better than the other people that I was competing against.
Yeah. I can't mirror myself in the first, in your first reason, because it's body image. It was the same for me too. If over exercising, I was like, if I am at the gym 2 hours, I am going to lose weight faster. I'm going to melt more fat. It's like I was seeing fat all over myself, legs, butt, and hips. And it's like, if I'm 2 hours here, I'm gonna do it better. And it's exactly as you said. It's not like that. And I'm on a mission to tell women that that is not right, because especially women around 40 years old, because when you reach the age and you have kids, your body is not the same. And what you want is when you get this inspiration and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. And you just take a decision, I'm going to the gym, and you start going, yes, you get the endorphins, you get the happy hormones working. And then you actually can start seeing results because you're feeling better. Maybe you step in the scale and you're not going to see 15 kilograms in 1 week less, right? But you're feeling better, and they don't realize. And that's, I like to get their awareness into that. It's like the first thing you have to realize that you're feeling better. Don't aim for the physical results. That is not what you should be feeling, at least for the first month. You are going to feel better. You're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to feel well rested, and you're going to be with your mood more stable along the day, right? And you know what? The second thing you said, like, I wanted to perform, I was working hard. I wanted to find a reason to stop over exercising, because I knew, and at some point I said, this is body image. This is a result of my eating disorders that I suffer in my 20s. I suffer of anorexia and bulimia. Bulimia, not so much, luckily, but a lot of anorexia. It's like the way to go was not eating. That's it. And I thought, well, this is body image. This is like the side effect of my eating disorders. But then I thought, what else could it be in my mind? And I found one reason that was good for me, and I found out it was very true, is that I had this mindset inherited from my parents, that the only way to succeed is to work hard. It's like literally break your butt off. That's the thing. It's like you have to work hard. It's never enough. And when you feel overwhelmed, tired, and you crawl back home from work, that's the way. Because otherwise you will not succeed, because you're being lazy. And I started to realize about this, like, that is not the way. And I have been working a lot in that. I love all this. I don't know if you have ever heard about Joe Dispenza, for example. Have you heard about him? I really love his books, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It's amazing. It's a wonderful book. I follow Eckhart Tolle too, and all those authors that write about abundance and mindset. And it's true. And we take that mindset and we apply that die, to win or die, and just no pain, no gain. That mindset, we apply to everything, to work. We start a project and you just give it all. You just pass your limits, and you don't respect your self limits, and you don't rest, and you get sick. And that was something that I identified on me, and that I really need to stop doing. And it's not easy, because it's been with you your whole life, and you mimic your parents. And I saw my parents always overworking, and and they had a good life, they have a good financial situation. So it made sense because maybe if they would have been overworking and being in a very bad financial shape, it could be like it doesn't make sense. But they were successful and they overworked. So immediately it was like, oh, that's what I have to do. But it's not. And it's been, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it made a lot of sense to me.
Well, it does. And we always want validation, and it depends on where it's coming from. And if your parents are saying that you have to work until your fingers have been, worn to the bone, then we're going to do that because that's how we're going to get love from our parents. That's what's going to impress them, or at least that's what we perceive that's going to impress them. And that's what we're going to strive for because we want that validation. And like you were talking about with hormones, we've got the four horsemen of mood regulation. You've got dopamine, you've got serotonin, you've got your endorphins, and then you've got, there's one more here.
Oxytocin?
Thank you, the love hormone. Thank you. And so you've got those four horsemen, but what we're not told is that, dopamine is a huge driver. And so that's what makes us go towards those foods, kind of circling back to what you were saying a minute ago. With the foods, the reason that we start to go towards these foods, like you were talking about the sensation on the front of the tongue, getting that dopamine hit, because dopamine is a very easily taken up hormone and very easily produced hormone, and it's the driving hormone. So the analogy that I always give between dopamine and serotonin is dopamine drives you to the dance, but serotonin is the one that opens the door, gets you in the dance, and dances with you. And so what I mean by that is that serotonin is the hormone that's self-sustaining. If you don't have a lot of serotonin going on, and that's the reason you have the SSRIs, the serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And so that way you can utilize more of your serotonin because that's the hormone that allows you to puff your chest up, pin your ears back, and walk through this life like nothing's going to bother you.
Yeah.
But 85 to 95% of your serotonin is not produced up here. It's in your gut. So if we have inflammation inside of our intestines, if our liver is being affected by insulin resistance, if there's inflammation in the intestines, if the serotonin is not passing into the bloodstream for whatever reason, it's not being produced or it's having a hard time translating, then of course it's not going to make it to the brain, and then we can't utilize that serotonin. So we're going to be down on ourselves. We're going to get into that depressive state, and we're going to be continuing to try to strive for more. And so, for me, my body image was never good enough. I was, in that kind of depressed state, not completely, clinically depressed, but when I looked at myself, I wasn't satisfied. And when I looked at my performance, I wasn't satisfied. And I imagined that there was a lot going on inside of my intestines, especially my blood sugar levels being so high, that was blunting my body's ability to utilize serotonin. And so that hormone that regulates, that mood and that happiness and that self-sustaining, it wasn't there. And that's what, for a lot of people, they will play on dopamine because dopamine's there. It's normally very difficult to get rid of dopamine. It can be done, but normally it's very difficult. So people play on that dopamine response, whenever they go for the Rice Krispie treat, or they go for, the breads, or they go for that high carb, processed, pesticide enriched, piece of nonsense. They're playing on that dopamine. But then you ask the vast majority of people, well, was it worth it? 5 minutes later, after they've eaten that piece of cake, they're like, well, why did I do that? It's because there wasn't serotonin on the other end of that thing to pick you up and dance with you in the dance, to sustain that for a long period of time. And so that dopamine, it got you to the dance. You did the deed. You bought the car. You ate the food. You did whatever it was. And then there's nothing there, so it drops back off. But that's something we don't hear much about, is the four horsemen of regulation. But then serotonin is a gut hormone, not a brain hormone. The brain utilizes it, but 85 to 95% comes from your intestines and your liver.
Exactly. And people don't know that when you talk about happy hormones, they think, many people don't understand what happy hormones are. And when you explain it, it's like, and the people who knows, it's like serotonin, but how come? It's supposed to be in the brain. No, it's here. No, in the stomach. No, it's in your stomach. And many people are very, that was a great explanation, by the way. It was like the dance and everything. It was like, you're very good at explaining this. And you know what? That's why I want you to talk about, because you just launched a coaching program called Reboot and Reset. I want you to tell me about that, because I have seen the reels, the two of you working together. So the reels are very entertaining, but also very educative. So whoever's watching, just go. Well, at the end of the video, we're gonna talk about you're gonna give your social media accounts so people can follow you, because it's really good, very educative, and it's a lot of content and information that people can get to start taking care of themselves and start a healthy lifestyle and start healing, because many people don't know that they actually have a problem. It happened to me that one friend said, "Can you? I want to work with you. Can you help me because I want to lose some weight?" And I said, "Okay, but let's start with your stomach." And she said, "Like, do you have any discomfort when you eat?" And she said, "No, nothing." She made a joke like, that I can eat out of the trash can and nothing happens to me. It's like I'm like a straight dog. And I was like, I don't think so, but okay. Just pay attention to yourself after you have breakfast tomorrow. And then lunch, because of course, they are different type of foods. You know that the standard breakfast is cereal with milk and yogurt. And people mostly don't eat proteins or fiber in there. So it's a different type of meal. And then for lunch, she's going to have meat and savory foods. So she started with the breakfast. She was used to have a yogurt with 2 toasts and butter. And that was it. And the coffee. And I said, I want you to just try to get up a little bit, 15 minutes earlier, so you can have the 15 minutes to pay attention to you. So you're going to sit and, I don't know, brush your hair, do whatever. Don't go on social media, but that's going to get your attention away from you. So pay attention to your stomach. She sat and she was having the coffee. And then she realized, she said, like, my stomach hurts so much. And then I ran to the bathroom, and then I was feeling this. I noted that I was completely bloated, and I asked her, "But this is the first time you notice this?" And she said, "Yes." "What do you do in the morning?" "No, I just get up. I have my coffee and my toast as I go, because I have to make my bed. I have to organize my house. She's single. She doesn't have any kids, so she lives alone. So I just grab my coffee, my toast. She's a lawyer, and she had to run to court, and she has to be on time. If you're not on time, you're out of the room, and you lost the case. So it's very stressful. So she just run with the coffee and just giving bites to the toast, and that's it. And I just go, "You have never felt this pain?" I asked her. And she said, "No." And it's because she was in this alert mode, in this sympathetic nervous system mode. It was like, I have to run away right now. I'm in danger. So she never felt the pain. And the first time I learned about this at IAN, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, I just looked at this and was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. This is how I am. I am a sympathetic nervous system person since I was born. But it's so people don't know that they are sick. And actually, she put attention to herself, and then she discovered that she made, of course, she went to the doctor. She took examinations. She was lactose intolerant. She doesn't have, she's not fully intolerant to gluten, but she had a level of sensitivity. So she had to try to stop eating gluten for a few days, a few weeks, and eventually she got better. And this is what I mean, and that's what I want you to talk about your program, because it helps a lot for people to know that these kind of programs exist.
Well, it's funny with the body. It's extremely complex, but it's simple all at the same time. And so what we strive to do with our Reboot and Reset program is we want to encourage people to understand that food is medicine. And so we normally start off, the way that this program normally works is we'll start off in the beginning with lab work. And so we've got lab work with doctor oversight that we normally run, and we see everything that's going on. We've got over 60 different markers, over 50 different pages of lab work, analysis, breakdown that we start off, and we see exactly what's going on, because we want to pinpoint the exact issue, as opposed to just saying, well, you're having some bloating, there might be a gluten intolerance. Where's that inflammation coming from? It could be the fact that you're eating a Pop-Tart. We want to see exactly what's going on, because inside of the labs, inside of your blood, inside of your DNA, it's going to show us where we need to pinpoint and customize your plan too. Mm-hmm. And so with that Reboot and Reset program, that's what we're doing, is we're pinpointing the exact issues that we need to start working towards. And as those issues start to fall off, we find the newer issues and we start to work towards those. we're never going to be perfect on our lab work, but we want to start striving towards much better looking lab work. We want to see what's going on in the body, but we want to encourage people to understand that they have complete control over their health and that it's theirs to have and no one else's. You can ask for help. The doctors, the health coaches, the other people that you're looking for the advice for health, you can ask for help from them, but your health is yours to control. You're not foolish. You're just a little bit ignorant to what your health is and what it involves. And there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. It's just if you choose to be willfully ignorant, then you got a problem. But we want to, like you were talking about the tagline that we want to educate people. We want to give that to them. We want to take what this big, ambiguous, tall entity that's very scary, we want to take that, dole it down, hand it to the person, and make them realize that it's really not as complex as what they think it's going to be, and that they can be in the driver's seat of their health, and that it's theirs to control, theirs to take, and then they can ask for help if needed. But that's going to be kind of where our program goes. Is we start off with labs, we start the educational process, we hop into a metabolic clearing program, and then we start to customize and tailor make these plans for these individuals that want to join with us. And so over the last 2 years, we've seen over 100 different clients come through, and we specialize in the autoimmune community. So people that have those autoimmune afflictions, we can help anybody, but that's where we specialize, is going to be when that immune system is up and it's flared and it is just taking over the body, causing a ton of inflammation. We want to take that inflammation, we want to calm it down and let the body start processing everything that's going on. And then it will start to figure out, oh, well, I'm attacking this structure. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should walk that back a little bit. And then everything calms down, the body becomes better, and that autoimmune presentation starts to walk its way back. It may not be 100% cured, but the life that comes from this is extremely beneficial because you start to feel better. This feel like you were talking about with that lady that you just mentioned, she hadn't felt the pain in the stomach. It was there. She just had not paid attention to it. And so much like that with the immune system, we think that it's normal to be 40 years old and have chronic back pain, to have constipation, to have bloating every time that we eat, to have our blood sugar. We're destined to have blood sugar dysregulation because our mom and our dad had that. So I've got that gene, and now I'm going to be a type 2 diabetic. Or I've got Hashimoto's disease and this low thyroid, it runs in the family. As opposed to, understanding that, the gene doesn't mean that you have to have this affliction. And so just pretty much that's what we're aiming for, is having people realize that they can walk this stuff back, if not completely, at least partially. And the lifestyle becomes that much better. You're that much more happy. And like we were talking about earlier with serotonin, bringing up those self-worth properties, back to you, as opposed to being inflamed and in pain.
Exactly. What would be 3 recommendations that you would give to people to imagine someone that is listening to this and that person has no idea where to start and they don't even understand what inflammation is, and they are they are keeping up with the conversation, but maybe they say, oh, I have a chronic pain in my stomach, I have reflux, but the doctor said that I have to take this pill and it comes and goes. So I guess it's chronic and I have to live with this. And that's exactly what we as health coaches, we're trying to tell people, no, you don't have to live like this. You can be better. You can be healthy. So what would be your top 3 recommendations? So for someone to start looking into their health, what should they do just for a start?
For start, let's see. I guess I would start off with the easiest thing to do would be to cut out gluten. Just completely cut it out of your diet. Try it for at least a month. You got to give your body a chance. Stop having, the breads, the gluten, maybe cut out grains completely for a month and see how your body feels. That would be my first recommendation, is just take away gluten and see how that's affecting the body if you're having a lot of gluten. Then outside of that, I would say get some sort of movement incorporated in your life. Movement is lubricating to the body. And so if we move, we're moving a lot, we're moving that's how our lymphatic system works. And so all of those toxins that get stored in the lymphatic system, if we don't move, it's not moving the lymphatic system. We don't have nerves or smooth muscle inside of the lymphatic system that squeezes all of those toxins out. We have to move to get that to happen. So movement would be the second thing. Then the third thing I'd recommend is seek yourself out mentally. Find a way to handle stress. One of the biggest things that I work with my clients is the 3-to-1 method. Have you ever heard of the 3-to-1 method?
No.
So you'll have one negative thought. So if you tend to be more negative, today was a bad day, I failed again, and that you tend to find that that's your default, is to be very negative and very upset with yourself all the time. What you do is you catch yourself in that negative thought, and you instantly have 3 positive thoughts that go along with it. So I might say, hey, Dillon, you messed up today. You did not get your exercise in, or you ate a piece of bread and that's not like you. Oh, this is so bad. But then I catch myself in that negativity. And then I have to say, well, I've got my health. I've got an amazing fiance, and I have, my bills paid for the month. And so you have to find 3 different positives for that one negative. And what's neat with that is that your frontal lobes, your decision-making process, your cortex is up here, they're completely plastic. You can program them. You might think that you're just skewed to be negative, but you don't have to be. You can definitely change that mentality, reprogram your frontal lobes, and they'll listen. And they'll change. That plasticity in the brain is most definitely a thing. And whenever you start to change that plasticity, you'll start to notice that you're more of a positive person than a negative person. So that's my third recommendation, is seek yourself out, find what's going on mentally, find those negative points, find your stressors, start to change those stressors. And it's in a month, you'll be shocked at who you are.
Great. What great recommendations. I love them. I think we're going to have to make another video, another podcast, whatever way, everything, because that's interesting. I love neuroscience, and I love to mix neuroscience with mindfulness, and because it actually is all connected. Like the one thing I teach my clients too is that when I say, please, you need to start, I actually order them like that, a dictatorship. You need to breathe. And make breathing exercises, 5 minutes, because, like, to be honest, people they cannot do it for longer. Like 10 minutes is a lot. When they start breathing, they're like, I'm wasting, and the thought is always, I feel like I'm losing wasting my time because I'm breathing, doing nothing, you see? So this is the way life pushes us to never stop. And always getting the wheel like a hamsters and keep going and going. So with 5 minutes, they start and they just take a deep breath, and the way I explain it to them is like, because it sounds like so esoteric. So they're like, eh. They look at me like, oh, breathing is like, It's like, what are you smoking? They actually they don't say it, but they actually look at you. Okay, what are you smoking? So I have to explain that activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It has a biological response. And then they look at you like, okay, this is smart. She's not smoking anything. So,
yes, it's the educational piece.
Yeah, right. So we're going to have to make another video to talk about this, because it's a very, very important topic. Okay, so Dillon, I think I covered all my questions, and I want you to tell me and everyone who may be listening to this where they can find you.
All right, you can find us on Facebook. It's Chronically Healthy LLC is going to be the Facebook page. Then on social media, my business partner is Erica Anderson. You can find her at the Autoimmune Entrepreneur. And then you can find me at Searcy Nutrition, SEARCY Nutrition.
Perfect.
And so that's where we'd like to just give out a ton of free content just so people can get that educational piece. What our aim is to make that ripple in health and have people realize that the health is theirs, it's no one else's to have. And these concepts that seem so ambiguous and large, we can just make that easily digestible. And then now you get it. And so you're going to make a positive change for you and your family and the people around you. And if we get enough community doing that, then this world is going to look completely different.
Great. Awesome words. This was an awesome conversation. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you telling all the information that you know and sharing everything that you know, because this is valuable information for people who are actually in pain, suffering, and maybe it's just impressive how many people don't know that their condition, they can get better, they can actually be healthy. So there's a lot of people that think that they have to live with this. they have to live with the whatever condition they were diagnosed, and it's not true. And I love when you said before epigenetics, because that was what gave me the power to understand that I am not destined to have insulin resistance or diabetes type 2. It runs in my family, but not necessarily I have to develop the disease. And actually, I was suffering of insulin resistance when I was 12 kilograms overweight, and now I am completely healthy. It's been 3 years and nothing. My whole life, my weight has been like up and down, up and down. And now it's been 3 years and not a single gram different. It's like stable, and I eat and I enjoy my food and I feel good, and I don't have stomach aches, because since I, just like you said, you stop with the gluten, just ditch the gluten and you will see difference. It was a difference for me where I have an intolerance. I cannot eat gluten, and I have lactose intolerance too, but I just remove those foods and I don't even miss them. I just learned to cook gluten-free and dairy-free, and it's fantastic. My entire family eats like that, except only my husband have gluten, but he prefers sourdough. And my kids, they are also, I got them tested because they were always with diarrhea and stuff. So I said, I have to stop this now because I don't want them to suffer. And I want their genetics to have the right information so they can grow healthy. And the difference is, like, you can tell the difference. They have these what do you call the purple bags? There's the under eye bags. What is the name of the? Mm-hmm. They used to have these things all the time, and the skin was dry and they look even yellow. And after 6 months, they were different kids, and they were always like this, like a lack of energy. And now you look at them; it's been 2 years, and they are other kids. So this is for us. And for someone listening, it could be a parent also listening to this. And this is a warning flag. Like, look at your kids too, because it's not only you suffering, your kids may be suffering too. And the kids is even better, because this is the moment where you can shape their health. And this is the best thing you can inherit to your kids, a good health, right?
No, most definitely. And that's that whole ripple effect of, educating the parent so then they can pass it to the child. And we see these children as these very malleable and hard to destruct things, as far as they've got youth on their side. They don't feel the pain, they don't have these same afflictions that we do. But what we're seeing time and time again with what we do with our testing, with our GI maps that we do a lot of times, we're seeing with kids, a lot of these children have gut permeability issues, or they have, there's a parasite, or there's a overgrowth of a bad bacteria. And we're seeing that with a lot of adults. And if the adults in these children's lives have that, the kids are going to have it as well. Mm-hmm. And these kids are inheriting it at a very young age, because the high carb, processed food, pesticide, laden diet, especially here in America, like we're talking about, that sad that's now starting to leak into your culture. Exactly. That if it's happening to the adults, it's happening to the kids. And these kids, we're seeing them get sicker and sicker at earlier and earlier ages. And it's such a sad thing to see. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so as I said, Dillon, thank you so much for your time. I am going to, here in the screen, it's the names of all your accounts, and down below in comments, wherever you're watching this, all the information is there, so you can reach Dillon easily. So with that, thank you so much, Dillon, and I hope it could be a second part of this.
Yes, of course. And thank you so much, Andy. I greatly appreciate it. It has been such a pleasure.
Okay. I see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye.